So yeah, so everyone, see, every nation is after this artificial intelligence. They want to create their own LLM, foundational LLM, and they want to use AI, for development, for making their country, great again, like for various purposes, right? But India do not have its own model AI, and also the data that present AI models depend on is like the Western companies and big tech companies, right? So if at all we are going to integrate AI in our governance, so how are we going to prevent the the bias?
Sir, with respect to bias, it is basically based on the data which is used to train the algorithms. So we should have certain methodologies with respect to both training and architecture other than the data. So the data that is used to train the algorithm should be very authentic, should be at least the error in the bias should be reduced as much as possible. And usually global experts say that when it comes to reducing the bias, we should have diverse workforce that is utilized for the development of artificial intelligence. If we have diverse workforce, like persons from various genders, persons from various like persons of color, or there should be people against whom bias is present. So, and it also during the testing phases, all these across various diverse areas of people, we should be able to demonstrate to them, uh, showing that the bias is reduced as much as possible. So these are the ways that we can handle it, and especially when it comes to India, having so much of diversity across all latitudes and longitudes, we should ensure that we should have decentralized model of AI deployment. Every state, based on its data, should deploy the AI. It should not be based on centralized data. Rather, it should be based on decentralized data.
So how are you going to do that? Like, what is the uh, way forward? Like when you say decentralized, uh, do we have a system in place like where it can be done, or do we have to create a new system for this?
So first, with respect to data, our governance is gradually moving towards digitization, so digitized governance. So in the process of digitization, we are trying to convert each and every data that we have into digital format. So that data, if it is in a format which can enable us to train the algorithm that we are adopting as a nation, that can enable us to have a decentralized model of training of the algorithm. The algorithm can be taken up as a whole for the entire country, but training should be done in a decentralized manner. For training, the most important aspect is the computational resources and the power resources that are required. With respect to computational resources, as far as there is an aspect of cluster-based cluster-based allocation of GPUs, sir, which is even mentioned in the India AI mission. So maybe based on that, we can reduce even the computational gap that various states have. Maybe some of the states like Maharashtra are much more equipped to deploy these models. But having that common resource based computational resources, we can ensure that this is done, sir.
But again, with respect to that, we are facing the constraint, like, we don't have many GPUs, like it is restricted by the America.
Yes,
And
sir.
how are you going to deal with this? Like, do we have the capability, even in the near future, to manufacture our own GPUs, or should we always be dependent on others?
Sir, the dependence of GPUs is a very big concern, sir. We should reduce the amount of dependency as early as possible. But the fact is, the recent emergence of DeepSeek is a very inspiring and motivational aspect with respect to our GPU story. The DeepSeek is based on much lesser power, like processing powered GPUs. So even if we come up with much lesser processing power GPUs, we can deploy our foundational models. However, we do not have any. We have very less resources with respect to even GPU manufacturing and chip manufacturing. So the Semicon India mission, which is focused on which have one of the objectives of generating India's first chip by 2025, is a good thing that we are able to start manufacturing our own chips. And also in the India AI mission, we are thinking to I think we are thinking to manufacture or deploy nearly 18,000 GPUs in a cluster-based model. So we are having a start, but it takes certain amount of time because this is a huge investment and it's an industry in process. as far as India is concerned. So we should be more patient and gradually reduce the time in which we will be able to attain this sustainability and self-reliance on GPU based availability.
Okay. So, what is going to be the impact of AI on Indian society when we start using it everywhere?
Sir, the first thing is, if we are using with respect to in the economic activity, the job loss or job displacement, to be very specific, will be there, sir. One of the even the IT sector, which is providing us many jobs, many of the workforce are employed in low value IT sector, low value IT service value addition, sir. So these sectors are very much vulnerable with respect to the automation that is happening in the IT sector. And secondly, with respect to the positive aspect that is concerned, India has very less resources in healthcare infrastructure. So even the human resources are very less as far as the WHO recommendations is concerned. AI can ensure that we bridge the human gap that we have with respect to human resources. And as a country, we are facing the skilling gap and educational learning outcomes are very poor in the education. AI can enable us to have better performance of our school students. Sir, in the district of Banka, they introduced a model, the Banka model, where what they have done is they've taken the performance details and performance data of the students, and using AI-based algorithms, they generated personalized inputs to the students. So it increased the pass percentage of class 10 students in the government schools. So this is a sort of demonstration. Even it happened 2 years ago, but still, what we can say is this gives us a lot of hope and motivation so that AI can be used to bridge the learning outcomes and the gap in the learning outcomes between various sections of society we have. And also, AI is not only just displacing jobs, but it can also relieve us of lot of suffering. For example, as I have mentioned earlier in the healthcare, it reduces the amount of suffering we have because it is not only used for diagnosis but also for predicting certain aspects. So prediction of diseases is an aspect where we can deploy AI. The other aspect is in the aspect of large scale crowds are being pulled in whenever any festival or anything will be happen in India. AI even has an application there where we can ensure that we can lessen the amount of suffering that we have in these scenarios also.
Okay. So what about the fact that most of the educated Indian youth, so I think they engage using English, I think on internet, right? And still most of the population, which is residing in rural areas or who are in the like more of aged groups, right, older age groups. So they are not much active on social media. So basically the engagement is very low, right? So to for AI to know about nuances of Indian society, the behavior of people of India, the diversity of India, right? So in this context, how can we make it more useful for every section of the population, and also the very first question, to avoid the biases. So what can government do, or like because we are still relying on like Facebook, Instagram, like something owned by foreign companies, and so who
Yes.
might be data, right? Yeah.
Sir, is a question regarding the bias with
No,
respect to urban and rural scenario or
not only bias. So how do we make it culturally sensitive AI? So
yes.
for the Indian society, considering the diversity of the Indian society.
Sir, the interesting aspect with respect to AI development is the counter to AI bias is in AI only, sir. I'm recently studying about one of the projects that US government has been taking up. So the project is regarding whenever US forces are deployed in other lands, other foreign regions. So the most important requirement is to generate a trust between the local community and the forces that are being deployed. So for generating of the trust, the communication is more important. As far as the current technologies are available, we are able to translate the communication that is based on local languages. So now they are trying to make it culturally sensitive. So
Mm.
the project is making the communication more culturally sensitive. So I got to understand from this that even through AI, we are not just able to translate it, we can make it more culturally sensitive. So the communication part with respect to culturally sensitive communication can be tackled using AI-based algorithms. But the aspect is whether the rural areas have certain ability to access AI infrastructure. So this is similar to the digital access, sir. We have to first reduce the digital access inequality that we have in rural areas, and gradually we should make people aware about the good use of AI, awareness about good use of AI. So then, because even in the economic survey, they have mentioned three types of organizations, and one of the organizations is stewarding organizations. In the stewarding organization, they said that the win not just routing AI development towards better use, it also involves making people aware of good use of AI. So this can be also tackled using the steward by institutionalizing that stewarding type institutions.
So, what are the new crimes we can expect when AI tools become available to criminals, cyber criminals, cyber frauds, right? And
Yes.
how do we deal with them?
So the first thing is using Chat GPT or another generative AI based algorithms. We can generate fake news or fake content which seems very realistic in nature. So this might manipulate people, and it has even far-reaching consequences, like even mob violence that happened due to the fake news that got circulated in social media.
Mhm.
And AI-based algorithms are also being used to hack, because AI-based code can be used to make hacking algorithms, which can steal people's data, financial data, and other aspects.
Mhm.
With respect to tackling this, sir, the core aspect is, in spite of having certain amount of human based communication that human nature of communication that AI generates, uh, we should be able to understand whether the data is right or wrong. So we have to improve the critical literacy among the people. So people should be able to understand whether certain aspect is right or not. Even in the recent, like the if you take the case of recent digital arrest, people should be able to critically analyze whether the person uh, who is personalizing as a law enforcement officer, whether police work in certain aspect or in such a manner or not, whether such kind of scenario existed before or not. So we have to first ensure that people know how certain organizations work, banking organizations when it comes to stealing of financial information, or the law enforcement organizations when it comes to arresting crimes like digital arrest. So this is about the critical literacy in the first place. And second is we have to deploy which systems from the policing organizations actively, so that we have to prevent such crimes from happening from much before. So maybe we need to have certain institutions called AI based intelligence, so that certain crimes are happening, we should be able to predict them even before they are happening, and we should be making people aware about them. So we can explore such feasibilities and opportunities.
So, there was a movie, this Minority Report. Are you aware of that?
No, sir, I'm not aware about it, sir, but I would like to hear about that.
So, in the movie, the crime is predicted beforehand, and then it is prevented, and the individual is arrested and reformed or something. So, do you think such kind of thing happen because of the AI? We can predict a crime.
Yes, sir, there is a model of predictive policing that is already being utilized in United States. So it's of two types. One is based on the location criteria, and second is based on the data of the criminals. So with respect to location criteria, for suppose if an India-Pakistan match happened in the last 20 years, so some 20 matches might have happened. In those 20 matches, we will be able to understand that these kind of crimes might happen. This is the kind of security requirement that we have. So we will deploy the personnel according to the requirement, and we will ensure that the crime don't happen. And
Mhm.
similarly, when it comes to personal data-based crime prevention, if we are able to understand that this is the scenario or this is the situation that is present, and these are the people who already have certain criminal history, if these people are present in this area, some crime might happen, so we can stop them much before the crime might happen. But there is always a thing called bias when it comes to AS, as we have already discussed about. The thing is, sometimes the algorithms which were deployed in US were biased against persons of color. So this has been a huge issue, that we should make those algorithms much more we should take aid from them, but we should not completely rely on the decision that was made, and we should try to ensure that the bias is corrected as much as possible. This is completely feasible, sir, but we should be aware of the threats that it poses with respect to bias and injustice that can happen because of the bias.
Okay. So recently I was watching a podcast where Jeffrey Hinton, the one who won the Nobel Prize this year for physics, working on the neural networks. So he has said that AI is becoming conscious. They have that capability and they can develop consciousness. Right. So what does it mean and how can they do it? And when a Nobel laureate is saying, that must be like that might become a reality or maybe becoming a reality.
Sir, actually, that was like opening a Pandora box. As far as the current applications are concerned, we haven't dealt about the conscious nature of AI, because already we are we are already not aware of why AI is taking certain decisions. There is an accuracy with respect to decision making, but we are still not completely aware of how the AI is taking its decisions and on what rational. And the uncertainty increases much largerly, because if AI becomes conscious about itself, the decision making will be much more critical and that much more complex to understand. So, as far as the conscious nature of AI, which is mentioned by uh, such a personality, it should be taken with much greater with much greater cautiousness and also seriousness, sir. So we should try to understand if AI's development is going through such phase. We should ensure that AI should be very much value based. The consciousness that it gets generated should be in line with human values, human dignity, and it should respect the diversity that is present in the humans. So this is all that I can think of, sir, because consciousness is something that is much beyond as far as my current imagination is concerned.
Okay. So what about AI and inequality? Like you earlier talked about, it can help address educational inequality. But what about other social inequalities, gender, caste inequality? So do you think is it going to deepen it or is it going to address it?
Sir, it has the potential to address the inequality, sir. Sir, we have natural language processing. So, using natural language processing and AI-based translation, we can translate every textbook around the world into local languages. So, the knowledge will be at the disposal in the mother tongue of many citizens. So, this can reduce the knowledge gap that is present with the world. And second thing is, AI can also be used to increase gender gap. Like we can make our public spaces much more secure using AI based, I mean like CCTV based surveillance or something like that. So it can increase the women participation and reduce the gender gap with respect to economy is concerned. And also, as I have said, that the AI can improve the educational performance. It can also improve educational performance of various groups which are already which are not much forward with respect to education. So the educationally backward groups can utilize AI based technologies to become much more educated and highly proficient. So I think it is up to us how we utilize them and how we put the systems in the right place and ensure that inequality is addressed. However, AI-based inequality when it comes to economy, because AI R&D is concentrated in very few countries, sir. As of now, largely it is in US, and as we got to understand that China is also doing substantially when it comes to AI R&D. So the inequality in a global level is present. But even this requires global cooperation to understand that AI should be decentralized in nature. We should pool our resources together to ensure that AI technologies are available to even smaller countries. So, in the lines of the climate change, we should take some responsibility for those countries who are backward, and we should reduce the responsibility on every scale that is present.
Okay. So one of the applications of AI is said to be in the field of material science, creating new materials, right? Creating new elements or materials. That was uh, unimaginable maybe in the past. So why do you, like what are the new materials? It has the capability to create, and for country like India, right? So if at all we develop that capability, so which is of course requires lots of effort. So how is it going to help?
Sir, in my graduation, one of the course is about which kind of material to be used to which use. So the kind of use, and we have to determine which material will be used. So in that, one of the major issue that our current society faces is, suppose we want to allocate a material for construction of a bridge. The bridge capacity is not more than 1,000 tons, but we don't have materials that are exactly suited to a little bit of approximation of, for example, if the material can take up the load of 1100 tons, it is still fine for us. But as far as the current grading of materials is concerned, we will be using a material which is far more than the requirement that is being present. So here we understand that making the materials much more personalized to the use case can enable us reduce the amount of resources that are required. So what AI helps us is it can help us simulate whether certain material combination is is catered to certain use case. So based on this, we can understand which materials are better useful. So as India, there are many sectors in which materials are utilized. First, when it comes to construction sector, as I have mentioned, the bridges and all, we use a lot of steel. So we can reduce the cost of steel and the amount of other materials that are utilized along with the steel. And when it comes to automotives, we are also one of the largest manufacturer of tractors and other vehicles. So even here, we can reduce the cost of materials. So uh, like
What
this.
about like GPU and all? Like, do you think AI will enable us manufacture our own GPU by kind of helping us produce certain materials required to create it?
So there is a fair possibility that AI might help us to have better semiconductors, utilizing even the resources that we have at our disposal at a lower cost. So it's a possibility, sir, that I should definitely read about this. This seems interesting.
So, what about quantum computing and artificial intelligence? They, if they come together, uh, what are the other possibilities, and how are they going to impact not just, I mean, the world itself?
Sir, when it comes to quantum computing, the major aspect is the processing power. It increases much more higher than what we can imagine now. So, but it also poses a threat to the existing systems, where because of the high processing power, we will be able to hack the systems that are being present. So in one way, it is making the AI much more efficient and uh, much more capable by increasing the processing power. But it is also a it's like a double-edged sword. It might even lead to harmful consequences, like making the hackers much more efficient, and it will be a security threat with respect to AI systems are also concerned. It's both ways, sir. It's both good and
Okay.
bad.
Uh, what about the recent populist measures? There's something called competitive populism is taking place, and lots of focus on the welfareist approach, welfare schemes.
Yes, sir.
Recent elections in India. So even the union government, the party which is ruling, even that is also in the race, with respect to competitive populism.
Yes, sir.
Do you think with this kind of approach towards governance and development, will we be able to become developed country by 2047?
Sir, it depends on the scale at which the competitive politics is being taken, competitive populist measures are being implemented. One thing is, sir, even the welfare measures some of the welfare measures that are being implemented will also help us generate human capital. For example, some of the welfare measures that are targeted in Andhra Pradesh uh, include direct benefit transfers to mothers of the children who are attending the schools. This has improved the attendance of the children, and it contributed to making them better educated. And even some of the freebie schemes like Telangana free bus scheme for women. This enabled the labor force requirement can be met at much better for the industries. But when it comes to certain populist measures, uh, which don't enable us long term improvement in any long term production or productivity, that can be harmful, because that is a huge opportunity cost for us in allocation of resources. So we should ensure that the welfare that we are giving should be conditional in nature. So, for suppose the Andhra Pradesh model, the direct benefit transfer to mothers. It is based on certain conditions like the child should be sent to the school or certain amount of attendance is mandatory for it. So if you can come up with certain terms, even using welfare, because which is a kind of necessity in the current politics, maybe that would change gradually. But even till then, when it becomes a necessity, there is a need for having some conditionality. And also the thing is, sir, I see the long-term solution is having a political consensus among all the parties. In the lines of model code of conduct, there should be an evolution of a policy where certain populist measures will not be taken up by any country, any party in their manifestos. Maybe this is where we can see the road to better development and better road ahead.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I mean, good, like, because they have mentioned artificial intelligence, so I think panel will be definitely interested in exploring all the various dimensions, sociological, from the economic perspective, from the cultural perspective, from the technological perspective. So I think when it is from the technological perspective, I think sounding bit more technical is desirable. I think it's okay to sound technical if we are talking about technology. But otherwise, like, okay, well, all the questions answers are good. So, so I think you should get 200 plus, right? So the kind of answers, the kind of even, but one issue is that so in some cases it is going a bit more lengthy, like in some answers. But somehow, if you can make it concise without losing the essence of the the core ideas, so I think so that will be better. But overall, and like when I asked a question like AI and new crimes, but there I think if you can accommodate certain keywords if possible. So it was more of explanatory. So few answers, including that question. So if it can be more precise, if you can bring certain jargon or keyword, right? So I think that will be more helpful.
Like misinformation, disinformation, these things maybe that might.
Yeah, exactly. So more of using certain keywords like standard words, so that will reduce the length of the answer as well as make it more effective in the sense that we will retain all of your points. So when it is.
Okay.
And also here and there, no, not necessary. It is not necessary to make a point more impactful. So if you can uh, use data or numbers, I mean, not in all the answers, wherever. I mean, if possible, like we were talking about GPUs, we were talking about uh, um, AI and new crimes. The crimes, how much of money is lost, or GPU, like how many GPU it is rationed, like from US. Just like to come across as like very well informed, like having in-depth understanding.
Okay.
So even without that, it is good. But if it is there, it makes more impactful. That's what.
Sure.
But good, you should get good marks only. Like last interview, and all, you might have got 190 plus only.
184, sir. My score.
184. So I think this time we'll get 200 plus.
Thank you.
Good. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah.